GM. Thanks for tuning in to an Unstoppable Partner interview. I'm here with Taylor, producer of CUFF. Taylor, how you doing today? So glad you can join and talk through some of the interesting things you're doing at the intersection of entertainment and Web3 and NFTs.
Thanks, Josh. Pleasure to be here.
For sure. Yeah, can you just start off giving us a little bit of background on yourself and really what CUFF is and the mission you're going after?
Yeah, so I am, like Josh just said, I'm the producer of the Chicago Underground Film Festival, and we are actually the longest running underground film festival in the world. So we've been operating for the past 29 years, and our festival is actually happening next week, so next Wednesday through Sunday, which I'm like super stoked about.
Heck yeah. Now, what classifies a film to be underground?
Yeah, I mean, that's an awesome question, and we get that question all the time. I think if a filmmaker thinks their film is underground, it probably is underground. As underground culture kind of like shifts as the time shifts, depending on what, social, political, economical, environmental issues are currently, being explored at that moment in time, the culture and the term underground kind of shifts too. So like filmmakers who are exploring new approaches to old established filmmaking practices is underground. It's kind of niche in a way. It's also super DIY, and it has kind of like Nick Zed punk cinema transgression roots, which is like something that's so deep to the core of CUFF. So it's kind of a hard to answer question, put a finger on it, but it shifts, I guess, as time shifts too. But ultimately, if you're rebelling against something and trying to experiment with something, then that's pretty underground.
For sure. Those two words you just used, rebelling and experimenting, I think really align with some of the ethos around crypto and NFTs. I think early crypto definitely started off as a rebellion against like the traditional finance system, but now I think it's pivoted a little bit less from rebellion and much more with experimenting and creativity and just trying new things in new ways. What's the value that these filmmakers get by sharing their films at like film festivals like yours? And what are they hoping to get out of this?
Yeah, dude. I mean, everything cool starts in the underground. Let's be real about it. And then mainstream comes along, realizes how cool it is, kind of takes it, and then it's mainstream and it's no longer as cool. So the filmmakers that get screened at CUFF, we find kind of people who are, pushing the boundaries, like right from the get-go. So it's really the forefront of creatives in terms of like the filmmaking space. And CUFF is kind of like this super sweet platform that gets the opportunity to give these people like their first kind of show. So a lot of filmmakers, once they screen at CUFF, then go on to screen at other festivals and whatnot. But it's kind of like an honor to launch yourself from an underground film festival, because it's like we spend a lot of time trying to find, the new kind of cool, fun, experimental filmmakers who are trying all these weird different things. And some of the, larger film festivals might not give these filmmakers an opportunity until they've had like a badge of we've been at some other festival. And so our film festival takes pride in like finding the newest, coolest, weirdest filmmakers and films to then give them the platform to kind of launch them.
Yeah, no, really, really interesting. I think even that comment you're making about curation, we see a lot in the crypto world too, as you start to collect NFTs and you start showing, your personal digital curation of items, assets, entertainment pieces, etc. So cool that you're curating, films that you think meet the values of your community and then get to showcase them. So
yeah, it's like a place you can, I don't know, if you like making playlists with like songs and stuff. The way I kind of describe how we put our shorts programs together and like the festival in general, it's like making, a really sick new visual playlist. So it's a fun time finding the films and then working with the programmers and the screeners to put a succinct program together where people can come and like, flow through the whole thing really smoothly.
Hmm. Yeah. So can we talk a little bit more about how CUFF is thinking through crypto technology and NFTs and DAOs? I think a lot of what you're experimenting with is very new and cool. And I'm kind of curious for you to maybe let's start off. How is CUFF thinking about integrating crypto and what you do? And then I'll ask some questions from there.
Yeah. So, I mean, the DAO framework, when a friend of mine brought it to my attention, maybe like a year or two ago, just the framework itself of really involving and being owned by the community, and then incorporating, really having those people be responsible for, like, I guess, furthering the evolution of how this festival is going to evolve in the future, is just so exciting. So CUFF, from everything like who should design our festival poster, to who should like make our trailer, to who do we want to perform at our after parties, or like who should our jury be. There's so many things that involve community input and decision making, and it doesn't need to be made by like a hierarchy kind of like select group of people, like, because underground culture shifts over time and is reflected based on like what that current scene is. Having those people who are involved in that scene actually create the festival and then share in the ownership of what they create is so underground. It's so like community like driven and just democratic in a way that's rooted in the mission of the festival itself. So it was really cool to kind of take a look at the mission of the festival and then be like, damn, so much of this is like what is going on in kind of the crypto blockchain space. So why don't we try and explore how we can weave these two together and, potentially bring more eyes to some of these crazy cool experimental films in the process.
Yeah. Yeah, you're talking a lot about community right there. And I think it's interesting to hear that you have, it seems like you have a very active community in the first place. I mean, to ask people to participate in some of the decisions that you're walking through, like what films to showcase, how to do certain operations. And that kind of starts with the fact that you have people who want to contribute, who are active in the community and are looking for just participation avenues, right?
Oh, dude, for sure. I mean, like, we have 29 years worth of screeners and filmmakers and programmers and artists and staff and volunteers. And all of these people, they like fuck with the festival so hard. And this is like their, safe kind of space to explore and experiment. And like, they take pride in being a part of this community. So we start with community. And then if we can figure out a way to give, ownership of CUFF to the people who are giving their time and love to us, like, it's just like, for sure. We'd love to have everyone, reap the benefits of putting on this festival, essentially.
Yeah. So what's been the community's reaction to that shift?
Yeah. So there's been some positive and negative, but I think the ones who have been more negative are coming from a place of, this is new. This world is pretty new. And for them, taking pride in traditional analog filmmaking practices is like their version of underground. So when they see us kind of taking the mission and exploring it in a way that's like looking forward versus kind of looking back, it's scary. And I understand that it's scary and the language is kind of scary. So it's like, how can we really meet them where they are in their level of understanding around like the crypto space, and then offer them like resources and like love, ultimately, to be like, hey, it's cool to be scared. Like, it's fucking weird probably when the internet first came out and like, everyone was scared, but like, we kind of need to explore this space if we want to have a say in, how it evolves.
Yeah, totally. I'm glad that you're sharing there's been both positive and negative, but you're working with them to, overcome some of those concerns. I mean, did you have concerns at the outset of your crypto journey, or how did that start for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a lot of time learning about what these words mean, outside of the terminology. Like, what does this actually mean? And how does this apply to a film festival? Like, we're an established film festival that is shifting to becoming a DAO versus like starting off as a DAO, So if I'm going to lead the film festival in this direction, I have the duty to know as much as I can and do as much research in this space to be able to confidently say, hey, we should totally explore this, like it might not work out. I don't know. But it would be so silly and just not to try, So, still learning. I still feel like a second grader in this world and just like, trying to be a sponge as much as possible.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn, but there's also a lot of fun to be had. So, okay. You mentioned like you're transitioning to the DAO. So let's talk about the DAO a little bit more. And like, what's the mission of the DAO? And then maybe we can dive into some of the actual like procedures of it. How you're going to be giving people voting power and stuff like that.
Yeah. So the mission of the DAO is the mission of the festival. And it directly ties into, challenging established practices and corporate norms, right? Exploring kind of defiantly independent visions, which is in this space. And so that's how we choose which films we program. And then it comes back to, kind of rebelling from what Hollywood and corporate traditional film house structures are saying is what you have to do. A lot of that doesn't work for the majority of people. So in terms of the CUFF DAO and that mission, we are literally taking the mission of the festival and bringing it into the DAO space. And when we say like ownership, right now at this year's festival, people who have been involved with the festival in the past, so everyone over the past 29 years will be able to redeem a CUFF token and access the CUFF Discord, essentially. And so when we put proposals forward next year to kind of see how we want to further the evolution of the festival, people who have CUFF tokens will essentially be able to contribute to those proposals or vote on those proposals. But at this year, so this is our 29th year, we're only releasing 29 tokens for people who are coming to the festival. I think it's really important for us to start small and grow sustainably and really get to know the people who want to be involved with the festival, and learn how they want to be involved and how they can contribute, and doing that slow and steady versus like opening up to like everybody felt more relaxing. And just like, we can handle this, getting to know these people on a personal level.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say, you're just releasing 29 tokens at the outset. A lot of crypto projects, DAOs, I mean, we've kind of normed around this 10,000 number for big profile, like picture projects, like, Cool Cats, Bored Apes, CryptoPunks, they're all 10,000. And so even with DAOs, we talk about the masses. And I think a big criticism of that is like, when you have a DAO like that, just even if people are interested, naturally you get, 95% of them aren't participating day in, day out in actual governance. And you're getting a subset, a very select few. And you're kind of saying, hey, let's just get the people who really want to actually contribute time to this. And we'll start there and open it up after that.
And maybe they want to have, more tokens released in the future, and that will be up to the community to decide. But at this moment in time, we feel more comfortable starting slow and steady.
Yeah. Well, cool. So you're releasing tokens, and is that in the form of like an NFT, some kind of membership pass?
It's a membership token. So they're not NFTs yet. We're trying to figure out, who, in terms of like artists in our community, do we want to kind of get to really lead this charge? Yeah. And that will ultimately be up to the community to decide too. So like, really this year is about creating the space and the framework to be able to start to figure out how do we want the CUFF DAO to look? Mm-hmm. How do we want it to grow and to evolve and to shape? And so many of the people who we want to have a say in those decisions, will be coming on board this year specifically.
Yeah.
And, it's not a decision that the hierarchy of like the, executive film festival team wants to make. Like, it's really, what does our community want the CUFF DAO to look like? And we'll explore based off of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you also talked about just a minute ago how like Hollywood, the way they do things, don't work for most filmmakers. Can you help clarify that for a lot of people who are listening that, aren't in the film industry, don't know how films are produced? What is that path to success maybe that happens in Hollywood that's really inaccessible for the independent filmmaker?
God, you have to have like a budget or know somebody. And it's like, damn, that's so exclusive. And underground filmmakers honestly aren't making stuff that's going to get picked up by like HBO usually, or unless it's, something crazy animation that's like on Adult Swim. And that's probably like the trajectory. But it's more like the people who are just starting to make films and maybe have a passion for making films. And you can make films with your phone, like anything you can record and make a film from, or a video from, and then you can essentially make a film and be a filmmaker. So the barriers to entry for like Hollywood films and those big art houses are so high. It's just like so exclusive. And there's so many different perspectives that just aren't getting shown because they don't have those connections or resources. So, we love those films. We love the weird kind of shot on your iPhone, shot on your dad's camera, edited super weird and funky, and then, sent with love. But in terms of like trying to assist our community of underground filmmakers to potentially actually make, a living from the things that they love to do, the whole crypto space is just this new world that kind of, values and likes experimentation, it feels like, and just like these crazy kind of visuals that honestly are so underground in a way. It's really, really exciting to see that this is a potential avenue that we can kind of like support and educate our filmmakers to go in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely seems like the crypto community is just full of people who are going to understand that mission a lot and the values of how the underground film festival scene work. And when you find like-minded people, I think they'll really be able to join what you're working on and propel that mission forward. So, going back to a couple things. Now, this is almost like DAO related and the question about the traditional industry and whatnot. A lot of people talk about DAOs as like fundraising mechanisms. And you mentioned, just independent filmmakers don't have that kind of budget that the Hollywood movies do. So do you think this DAO could also have an element of fundraising for these indie filmmakers too?
Oh, dude, I hope so. I mean, like if there's, let's say someone in our community puts forth a proposal on like this really cool film that like they need support executing on, then it would be fantastic to leverage the community to figure out how to achieve, this filmmaker's vision. And I mean, there's so many ways that we can incorporate fundraising into the DAO structure. It just kind of comes down to how does the community want to do that?
Yeah.
But yes, totally. Like fundraising for one, also like screening, paying our filmmakers whose films are coming to CUFF a screening fee. This is something that's kind of new in like the film festival space of like filmmakers wanting and kind of desiring a screening fee to have their film shown. And a lot of film festivals haven't budgeted for that. So putting forth that question to our community of like, hey, we really want to pay all of our filmmakers, so we can show their films. How do we go about raising that money?
And that's I'm guessing that's because in the past, like film festivals look at what they put on as exposure for the artists. And so that's kind of the payment.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's like the filmmaker has to cover usually like all of the other expenses. Yeah. And like it's It's a lot to make a film and to edit a film and to pay for that and then to fly to wherever you're going and then to pay for lodging there. Like the expenses behind that are crazy. And it's not like, like I said, underground filmmakers are getting big distribution deals. So really tapping into our community and saying, hey, like how should we raise this money to be able to do this to support our artists and our community is something that I'm like, so excited to see what kind of creative responses we get to do this. Cause it's, it's DIY. It's how can we do this with ourselves and with the resources we have around us? And that's so exciting.
That is exciting. That is very exciting. So let's talk through some aspects of Web3. And I'd be curious to hear from you, like how you see them, like how you think through these things. So I've got a couple written down in front of me that I want to throw out at you. So when I think of some major benefits of like crypto and NFTs as it pertains to just all aspects of a kind of business or digital life, so one of them is ownership. So how do you see ownership through this filmmaking and crypto lens?
So ownership means that you totally own all of the rights and everything within your film, right? So no one else is taking a cut, which honestly, underground filmmakers usually have a large percentage of ownership because they're doing everything themselves. But being able to enter this Web3 space and maintain ownership while connecting directly with people who like love their stuff and want to support their stuff, and then being able to kind of give pieces of ownership to those people who are directly supporting and championing their work is so exciting. That's like so cool. And especially to be able to help facilitate that as a festival. We champion our filmmakers. Yeah. So it's like, how can we champion them maintaining ownership as much as they want while also potentially giving some of it to people who are like their number one supporters?
Yeah. And do you see like IP rights was kind of a subset of ownership that I had listed down? Yeah. Do you see the IP and ownership being shared across token holders, or is like the CUFF DAO really isn't going to be giving ownership of individual films? It's more so ownership and decision making over the festival. And then those filmmakers can potentially, find ways to tokenize their digital, property themselves.
Yeah. So I think the CUFF DAO and the CUFF tokens that will be given to the community will be ownership of the festival specifically.
Makes sense.
The filmmakers within that community, if they want to go and figure out how to do an NFT drop with their film and fundraise around that, we want to be a hub for education and, resources for them to be able to achieve that. But ultimately, it's totally up to them. Like, we're not going to take a percentage of, their film unless they're like, hey, can you help us with this? And we'll give you a, percentage of this. Then cool. Yeah. But otherwise, it's totally up to the filmmaker. Whatever they feel like is the best model for them to be able to achieve, their hopes, dreams, vision, then we're going to support them in achieving that.
Totally. Yeah, it's really interesting when you think about a filmmaker potentially creating a DAO or tokenizing their indie movie, because by selling NFTs that give you fractionalized ownership of the movie, those fans who buy in also become your biggest supporters and marketers and whatnot. So when it's time to actually drop the film, screen it online or whatever, those people, if you have 100 or 1,000 of them, are all like digital marketers, an army of digital marketers on your behalf, because they have ownership stakes now. So I think there's probably a lot of really interesting avenues that filmmakers can do to raise funds, raise awareness, and stuff like that around their art.
Yeah, I do too. And I think there's, what are they called? Decentralized Pictures. They are...
Is this a project?
It's an organization that basically is championing filmmakers to create DAOs to fundraise and NFTs off of that to be able to support their projects. And they are such an awesome educator and resource in this space in terms of how filmmakers can enter Web3 and structure the release of like a project. So there's someone who's, who we've been kind of chatting with just to say, how should we do this? Because it's really, and I'm so happy about kind of what I've experienced in the crypto space around people supporting one another in regards to sharing knowledge versus like, we don't want, as a film festival, we don't want to share with other film festivals how we're essentially like raising money or rolling out like the marketing for it or the release because maybe they'll steal that. And it's all like scarcity mentality where it feels like, because we're trying to support our community and that's like filmmakers in general and artists in general and creatives in general, like how can we share knowledge to be able to do that? And it's not like me versus you. It's more of like an us feeling.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Well, can you give me any examples of artists who are in the blockchain space already? Maybe someone who's going to be showcasing their film at the festival?
Yeah. So Lonnie Edwards is actually on our jury this year, and he is still a filmmaker. He's screened some film at CUFFs before, and he I think just did a NFT project with Mike Tyson. So it's kind of on the down low still, so I'm not sure how much I can like totally share about it. But he's someone who really champions the space in a way that I'm so excited for him to be at CUFF this year because it's I feel like it's going to be pretty fiery, controversial in terms of like CUFF really entering this DAO space and kind of old filmmaker heads being like, no, what are you doing? Yeah. So having someone like Lonnie who's been a filmmaker is now on the jury and is also like heavily in the NFT space working with pretty big people and really benefiting from the Web3 world it just feels really reassuring to have someone at the festival in our court who can be like, don't be scared.
Yeah. Cool. No, that's cool to share that. And I'm glad that some people who are participating are also in it already because they'll just be able to help educate everyone around them too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Okay. I got a couple more questions for you. And, I am curious, can you share what or how you're working with Unstoppable Domains at this film festival? I'm curious.
Yeah. So, shout out to Bennett. Love Bennett. Can't wait for him to get to Chicago and see the film festival. So yes. Unstoppable Domains is working with CUFF to launch the CUFF.DAO domain. Right. So during the festival itself, we'll be minting the domain in addition to having Bennett talk about digital identity and how that ties into being, an artist and a filmmaker and what that looks like if you have like your own domain entering this space. So it's going to piggyback off of another program we have called Blockchain Fairy Tales, which will be an introduction to the DAO crypto space for a lot of our filmmakers. And then having Bennett and Unstoppable kind of come in to, I guess, really give people like access to figuring out how to launch their own NFT domain, like in real life at the festival is something that, we're really excited to see how our audience kind of engages with that.
For sure. Want to give Bennett a shout out. If you're listening, be sure to follow. I'm just searching it now on Twitter. Give Bennett a follow on Twitter. He's super active and always down to talk identity, Web3. His handle is @BENXIT_. So he goes by oxben.nft. So stoked that he'll be able to be at your festival and do a live minting experience. I think that's a lot of fun. And the NFTs are so digital, but when you can have like mint it live, even though it's still on a computer screen and you can kind of talk about what it means, how you can use it, that'll be really fun. Hopefully you have some popcorn in hand
like
too.
A big screen. Yeah. Oh gosh. I mean, like the whole minting of an NFT, it's, like you said, it's usually done on a computer, right? So having this actually happen on like a big screen in a movie theater in front of an audience, I'm hoping will like kind of demystify it in a way. And for people to like see it's not so crazy, scary, and foreign. So really, really grateful for Unstoppable and, Bennett coming out to kind of support in our community entering this space.
Yeah. Well, this has been really interesting. I didn't know really anything about these underground film festivals, so I know I learned a lot about that. I think it's dope that you're bringing NFTs and DAOs into the space, and you're educating a whole world of people who may not be familiar with crypto. And I want to know what's next after this film festival. Is there anything else you can share around like what you're going to be working towards and thinking through?
Man, I think it's going to be up to the community of CUFF token holders. Honestly, like it's such a cool thing to be able to share ownership and then decision making with people who like really value the mission of the festival. So being able to kind of start the discussion around, hey, what do we want CUFF 30 to look like early on? We'll hopefully kind of plant some really cool seeds for the next film festival and seeing how kind of CUFF can continue to bring in the outcasts all over the world to our community of just total weirdos.
Dope. Well, I'll be keeping my eye on what's going on with your DAO, and I'm just want to make sure I'm giving the Twitter handle a shout out too. So if you're listening and you want to learn more, at CUFF, CUFF_Chicago, their Twitter account. I'm sure you can catch lots of the updates there and links to their website, cuff.org, where you can learn more about the DAO and what's going on. So Taylor, thanks so much for joining. I had a good time talking with you, and I know I learned a lot, and I think the people listening will as well. So with that, I'll see you in the metaverse. All right. Bye.
Bye.